Nintendo. You might know them as the company known for making some of the highest quality games and franchises found within the industry. I know them as the company that just won't let this f***ing thing die. And with their incredibly extensive library of well-known franchises that always deliver the goods no matter who you ask, I thought it'd be fun to go through some of their franchises and piss everyone off with my opinion of what game is the best. Now you might be wondering, why only some of them? Why not all Nintendo franchises? Well, that's because I haven't played every Nintendo franchise, meaning games like Pikmin and even Pokemon are out of the running. And franchises that either only have one entry or only have one entry that I have played, like F-Zero and Animal Crossing, will also not be joining us as well. Damn, that's like every franchise that this company makes. What am I doing here? And one more thing, if a specific franchise like Mario has various spin-offs that has their own dedicated series like Mario Kart, Mario Party, and Mario Sports, those will be absent as well. Maybe another time if I eventually pick this topic up again, perhaps I'll include them, but for now, I'm keeping one Mario series and one Mario series only. So now, let's go through every Nintendo franchise and determine which one is the best in my opinion. So starting off with the most obvious, damn it, it's actually not too common to find mainline Mario games, as in the traditional 2D and 3D platformers, that doesn't stand toe-to-toe amongst the best games of all time. I mean, yeah, games like The Lost Levels, Mario 2, Mario Land, these aren't particularly great, but pretty much every entry in the Mario series other than those have all been pretty damn stellar. Although that sort of created a problem for me because the Mario series typically alternates between 2D and 3D, and deciding which style I prefer has gotten pretty difficult over the years. And while I'm desperate to just get it over with and say 3D is my favorite, with games like Mario 64, Galaxy, 3D World, and Odyssey being truly spectacular, 2D makes that pretty tough, with games like Mario 3, World, and Land 2 on the Game Boy definitely holding their own. And while I'm personally geared more towards 3D Mario, I have got to go with Super Mario World as my favorite, mainly due to the fact that it's literal perfection all wrapped up in a Super Nintendo cartridge. This game is just so good with its level design, power-ups, secrets, boss fights, hell, even the difficulty is perfect. I literally have nothing to whine about with Super Mario World, as it's just that good. Now, whether Super Mario Bros. Wonder will impress me more is still yet to be determined, but until it does, Super Mario World is truly the best of what the entire Super Mario franchise has to offer, at least in my opinion. Next up is Donkey Kong, another Nintendo franchise that I would consider one of the best, where the country games are what usually comes to mind first. This is essentially a 2D platforming series that originally started on the Super Nintendo before taking a break throughout the 2000s until eventually coming back with returns on the Wii in 2010, and had one more release in 2014 being Tropical Freeze on the Wii U. And as you could guess, these games are unsurprisingly really damn good, with Returns and Tropical Freeze honestly being the best modern day 2D platformers ever made. And despite that fact, I found not 3, not 2, but one single game that I believe is actually better than the entire Donkey Kong Country series that I'm ultimately going with as my favorite game of the franchise. Enter Donkey Kong Game Boy, or Donkey Kong 94 as it's commonly known as, because it's another one of those almost perfection kind of games. It feels kind of weird considering a Game Boy game to be my favorite game in a specific franchise, but trust me when I say that this game deserves it. It takes the original Donkey Kong arcade game from 1981 and reimagines it with an additional 97 levels, where each of these levels turns this basic little arcade game into a full-on puzzle platformer. And it's a lot of fun too. The puzzles are satisfying to solve, the new acrobatic moves that you have as Mario are fun to pull off, and no individual level feels the same. The Donkey Kong Country games might be on a whole new level of amazing, but Donkey Kong 94 surpasses them all. Easily my favorite of the Donkey Kong Country series. Man, I need a vacation. Now next up is The Legend of Zelda. Now this one's pretty hard because each game in this series is amazing, and choosing between which entry being my favorite is a bit tricky. Tears of the Kingdom. Saved myself an additional 5 minutes, thank God. Alright, even if Tears of the Kingdom is still the best game in this already really fantastic franchise, That's not to dismiss other entries from being great either. Breath of the Wild, Link's Awakening, Wind Waker, all of which are truly stellar games that I do very much adore, but Tears of the Kingdom is still better in my opinion. Now I might have more fondness towards Breath of the Wild as it's the first true open world game I've played, but Tears of the Kingdom essentially expands upon it, making the original kinda hard to go back to. Taking every aspect, level design, mechanics, even the physics and engine of the overall game, and just expands upon it in a way where the idea of playing the original makes me so angry. Now, Metroid was actually a franchise I was never all too big into up until the last few years came around where Metroid Dread's release essentially got me into it. I don't know, the idea of exploring a big giant open world, gaining abilities, and fighting disturbing looking creatures throughout was never something us Wii Sports fanatics could fathom back in the day. However, when I was able to step outside my comfort zone and get into this franchise with Super Metroid, followed by Dread a few weeks later, I was immediately hooked. I saw why these games are so beloved by fans. I saw why fans were so dedicated to getting more entries in this cool franchise that doesn't always sell too well. I saw why people loved Metroid. And after 2 years, I have officially come to the conclusion that my favorite entry in this franchise is Metroid Dread. Now, I never actually got around to playing the Prime games despite the original now being on Switch, but keep in mind, I'm still new to the Metroid series, so these kinds of things take time. It'll happen eventually. Now, next up is a Nintendo franchise that's become pretty dormant and in many ways is one of Nintendo's best, being Star Fox. And that really sucks because I've always really had a soft spot for this series. I mean, yeah, titles like the original Super Nintendo game, while technologically impressive running on the Super Nintendo, doesn't hold up very well and really feels more like a prototype for a game made on hardware that can actually handle it. Like, let's see. 3D graphics on a cartridge that's 64 bits and has the company's name included? Well, now that's just depressing. Star Fox 64 might not be the most recent entry, but it is, to me, the pinnacle of the franchise. It essentially takes the Super Nintendo game and makes it actually playable, who would have thought? And not only that, it's a lot of fun too. The on-rail missions are really fun and engaging, the Landmaster and Blue Marine missions, while not as good as the on-rails, are still really fun, boss fights are exciting, and the game's progression really does lend itself well to multiple playthroughs with the different routes you can take to the final boss. It's also very charming as well, with the way the characters' mouths move like puppets and the iconic voice lines that never gets old, whether it's for the first or 50th time. And overall, while I do enjoy the Super Nintendo game from time to time, Star Fox 64 is the game I can play all the time and never get tired of. It really is a lot of fun. And finally, we have the Wii series of games. And much like Star Fox, it is heavily underrated. Now keep in mind, these games were never meant to be anything deep. No villain to stop, no power-ups or level designs, just you with a remote in your hand trying to replicate the feeling of virtual activities that you typically play in real life, like fishing and posing yourself into bubble-shaped silhouettes. It's stupid simple, and for many people, it's nothing to really write home about, but I really do like these games and think they have a place as one of Nintendo's most prominent franchises. But out of all these games, which would I consider to be the very best Wii Sports? Wii Sports Resort is usually the one thrown around online as the best of the bunch, but I've never played it, so let's just disregard that and pretend that it's the original. Please. So I have a lot of nostalgia for Wii Sports, and hell, I still play it to this day. But the reason I love it so much is because it showed the world that motion controls could actually be fun. And the idea of using various sports to depict that was really smart on Nintendo's part. For tennis, you swing the Wii remote like a tennis racket to hit the ball in the game. And for bowling, you're replicating the motion you'd normally do when you're throwing a ball into the lane. I could go on and on about this game, but the short response to this segment is that when it comes to the Wii series, where over time the motion controls may have gotten more accurate and the games themselves might obtain more content, it will never get better than this. Oh, we're done. So yeah, I know I didn't go through everything, but keep in mind that everything else I'm either saving for a potential follow-up or are franchises that I haven't played enough of, or haven't played at all, so I hope you understand. But please, tell me what you would consider to be your favorite game in Nintendo's cornucopia of franchises, and if there's anything that wasn't mentioned here, also let me know. I forgot Smash Brothers! And that's going to wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed the video, then please consider subscribing and checking out my other videos on my channel where you'll find more videos like this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.